Um, First off, Mayor Whitfield here, City of Elyria, super excited about this conversation, talking with Karen Mills from Harvard, but Karen has a unique experience with the City of Elyria, so I'm going to ask her to speak to that as well, but really excited to spend this time this morning talking about the economic recovery that so many of our cities are going through, and in particular, we're going to talk about the City of Elyria and really revisiting our economic strategy that we walked into the door with and how relevant is that today, in talking with an expert. So Karen, if you don't mind just doing a little intro and sharing with us your background and then in particular, your experience with Elyria, I think it's pretty unique.
Mr. Mayor, I am delighted to be talking to you today. You and I met at the Bloomberg Mayor's event that Harvard and Bloomberg do together. I'm now a senior fellow at Harvard, but before that, of course, I was the head of the Small Business Administration, the SBA in Washington, during another really difficult time, the 2009 financial crisis, where, I was responsible for all of America's small businesses. I'm really very, very pleased to be talking to you about what we do today because we're in another crisis, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
The special connection to Elyria really is the reason I'm most delighted. I think I've been to Elyria, it's somewhere between 50 and 100 times.
Oh, wow.
Because for 7 or 8 years, we owned a business that was headquartered in Elyria in plastic injection molding. Now, I'm not going to sort of say how old I am, but this was, I think we bought this business in 1987. It was one of the first businesses I ever bought. I grew up in manufacturing. I'm a specialist in things like injection molding and subfractional motors. Really, this is where I learned about America and how make things and what small businesses do as a part of that American economy. So we had a business in Elyria, and I would fly in, every month pretty much, and work through the problems that we were having as we went into another recession. And that was, 89, 90, 91. So this is a reoccurring theme. But in the course of that, I developed a real connection to your city. And I don't know it today. I honestly haven't been back there in more than 20 years, so I'm sure you've changed, but you are still held in my heart.
That is awesome. And I can't wait to host you back here in Elyria once, we get back.
Yeah, I want to see the new Elyria,
Yeah, no doubt.
The 1980s Elyria.
No doubt about it. So, your background, being the head of the SBA is going to be important in our dialogue today, because that's one of my focuses is it's really trying to figure out how do we support small businesses. Often we think about the big, large corporate, but really our economy is made up of so many small businesses, and it's important to have the supports for those. So let's dive right into that. Let's talk about where are we right now on a national level in terms of what you're seeing around. I know we had our session with the other mayors as a part of the Harvard session, talking about how other cities are dealing with this recovery. But where do you see the status of small businesses right now?
Small businesses are in real trouble right now. And I hate to say it, but maybe this is the most difficult time for small business that I've seen in my lifetime. And I mentioned, I've seen some difficult times. And why is that? It is because of COVID. It is because that we have a national, global pandemic, and we have had to respond for the health and safety of, all of us, the business owners, everybody's employees, the whole community. And that has deeply affected a segment of small business that sometimes we take for granted, which is, our Main Street small businesses. Now, there are lots of different kinds of small business, but together they make up half of America's jobs. I'm just going to repeat that. Half of the people who work in this country own or work for a small business. And that is true, I am sure, in a place like Elyria. But not all small businesses are the same. So one day we may be talking about, the high tech businesses that are going to be the next Google, and, they're going to be backed by venture capital. And a lot of those are in Silicon Valley, but some of those are in Ohio and in lots of other places around the US. We need those businesses, but they need a certain kind of help. And that's not who we're focused on today, because they're not in the worst trouble.
Mhm.
The people who are in real trouble are the local Main Street businesses, and also to some degree the supplier businesses like the one I used to own. The B2B businesses, the industrial businesses whose, end products are down. So their business is down.
Mhm.
But the people I worry about the most today are the dry cleaners, the car repair operators, the customer facing businesses
Yep.
that really make our community unique. This is the fabric of our daily lives. And very often economists ignore,
Mm.
because they say, yeah, a restaurant closes, another one opens, it's just normal economic dynamism. There's a lot of names for it. But right now, this entire segment has lost its revenue base. And this is not a stable segment. This is a segment that most people have, less than a month of cash on hand.
Mhm.
Try to, hope that the PPP money and some other programs would keep them going, but the pandemic has lasted longer.
Yeah.
So we really have to attend to this segment during this crisis.
No doubt. What we've seen our community really try to rally around a couple things. One, our restaurant, there's a group that got started called Love Elyria. And what they did was they purchased food. They'd like cash mob all the different restaurants with, they'd order 100 dinners and then they just give them out to people in the community. So they were doing their part to try to help things going. Then us as a city, we used over almost $500,000 of our CARES Act money to go towards small businesses. So we've been going through those applications. It's been interesting getting the insights of what businesses are struggling with right now. I know one of the pieces that you pulled out in the Harvard session, which I embarrassingly wasn't ready to answer the question.
You were dealing with another crisis.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of priorities.
Yeah, no doubt. But about how different segments need different types of help. And you mentioned that, so I want to kind of talk about that. Like, so restaurants need a certain type of help, but you also talked about other industries may need other types of help. So could you speak to that as well?
Yeah. Different businesses need different kinds of help. And the one thing that goes along underneath everything is when the community rallies in support of it. So, I was one of the people who built Small Business Saturday.
Mm.
American Express came to us and said, we don't want this to just be about using the American Express card. We want it to be about small businesses. I said, well, we can help you with that.
Yes.
Now this whole notion about shopping local, we need to do it more than just on the Saturday after Thanksgiving.
Got you.
Your story about what the community did to support their restaurants is exactly the kind of thing that's necessary.
Mm.
And here's where I really look to the big businesses and the banks in the community to step up their efforts. Bigger businesses are, of course, affected, but they have a lot more resources and resiliency. And one of the things they have today is access to capital markets for very low interest rates. The Fed is keeping interest rates very low.
Mhm.
That's great for a small and a middle-sized business. It's not so great for a small business who can't actually get that money because the banks aren't lending.
Yeah.
So one of the things I said is, look, you got to think about different solutions for different problems. You got to focus on what is the problem I am trying to solve. So the problem you're trying to solve is get more revenue into the hands of these businesses. You do things like buy local. The government, the city government should take a look at all its contracts, say, how can I keep my money in the community? And businesses should think, how can I turn some of my purchases into the community? Just make sure I am buying local. And one great company that I'm involved with, I'm actually an investor in, is called Alignable. It's a community of small business. And they developed this program called, hashtag My Money Stays Local.
Mm.
Everybody would calculate what percent of the money they spent in the local community. So one I post, 44% of my dollars last month were spent in my town,
Mm.
my town of Brunswick, Maine. Now, I make a choice every day. Am I going to buy something on Amazon? Am I going to go to Walmart.com, or am I going to go down and get the local farmers market and go to the local, small store and buy something,
Yep.
especially as the holiday comes. So spending your money locally is one kind of solution.
Mm.
You're looking to drive a second problem, answer to a second problem, which is, well, what about capital for businesses that are small? And here we talked at the Bloomberg conference about getting the banks into the room and asking them, how much are you lending in our community right now?
Mhm.
And they're going to say, oh, well, we would lend to anybody who's creditworthy, but nobody's creditworthy because of course they just lost 50 to 80% of their business. So one potential solution is to get a fund going that would supplement that.
Yep.
This
Yep.
is what I did at the SBA. I was able to guarantee 90% of those loans. I'm hoping the SBA will do that again nationally for their 7A program. But even before that happens, Mr. Mayor, I think, there's local philanthropy and local, and state and local activity.
Yep.
Ask them if they will take the first dollar loss on a bunch of small business loans to Main Street shop owners who just need some help right now.
No doubt about it. So I'm sure you're familiar with community development corporations. And so right now we're actually looking to try to stand one up that would be able to host one of these funds to help, not only the historically disadvantaged that haven't been able to access capital, but even now in today's market where everybody's dealing with a disadvantage, to make sure they have access to those capital dollars, because a lot of these banks have those Community Reinvestment Act dollars that they could be putting into funds. And so we're hoping to try to stand one up here in the city here soon.
Mr. Mayor, I have to just tell you, I think that's a great idea.
Mm.
Just a great idea for the COVID crisis. That is an instrumental part of how we're going to get access and opportunity into some of our more disadvantaged neighborhoods and people. There are entrepreneurs everywhere.
Mm.
Just don't have access to two things. One, of course, is the money. The other is the technical assistance and support. An entrepreneur has a lot of passion, but sometimes they don't know what they don't know and they try to reinvent the wheel. And getting that technical support that these community financial institutions do really has been a proven positive. So I think that'll serve you well for the long term.
Awesome.
That CRA money to support the Community Reinvestment Act money, to support activities like that, I think that's an excellent plan.
Awesome. You mentioned this helping out in the technical support. And I want to talk about this a little bit because you brought up the point of, a lot of people now are making the decision to like shop. Am I going to go out or am I going to go to Amazon or Walmart? And one of the things that I'm interested in and would love to hear your feedback on is how do we get our small businesses to embrace the digital economy as well? How do we get them to start to, if you're a restaurant, how do we get the delivery component a part of your business? If you're a local hardware store, how do we get you to embrace the digital side as well? So how do you see small businesses surviving in this new, we were already headed there, but this is kind of expedited this digital economy?
I just wrote a article on what my advice was to small businesses. And then the first piece of advice was you got to get more revenue, which you got to open up your mind to online, to online ordering. And it's a bit tough for somebody who's not very digitally savvy to get all that done. So there are a lot of organizations now who are stepping up to help, but I think the city can do can do something to convene some activity around this. What if you have sort of an online, not really hackathon, but, an online, I got a digital problem, and you get a whole lot of experts from someplace that one of your local, you have some great colleges and universities uh, nearby. Get those young students on and get them to start manning a set of help sessions for small businesses online, open office hours, and
Mhm.
small business, and then get the Main Street organizations to promote it so people know that they can go on and they can have an individual help them get access to, how would I build a website? Or gee, my ordering, I'm using the fax machine still, how do I get orders coming in online? Should I sign up with one of these new folks, Uber Eats or whatever it is, or can I sign up with multiple just to get all
Yep,
those questions answered?
yep, yep.
And small businesses will help each other
Yeah,
questions. You just need to provide the convening.
yep,
Small businesses they're isolated out there.
yep.
They're busy just trying to serve
Survive.
their customers and get through the day.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's one of the biggest challenges is that if you're an entrepreneur, it's like a catch-22. You don't have the time to work on your business because you're so much in your business. And so how do we create a space that doesn't disrupt their day-to-day business, but still gives them time to step away from it and work on it? And that was something I did prior to coming here. I was president of the Urban League, and we did a lot with minority businesses, trying to help them kind of step out of the business for a second and work on it. We partner with the local
Well,
small.
that's why you're so smart. That's why you know what to do, because you've
Uh,
been doing it. I mean, no, you have to be hands-on. You'd be surprised how many people don't get it about this world. This is a hands-on problem
yep,
that requires some hands-on solutions,
yep,
but that doesn't mean it's small and unimportant. It's
yeah,
actually really important.
yep, yep. So no, this is really good feedback. I want to segue over to as I shared via email. We came into the door with an economic strategy that uh, in the words of Mike Tyson's quote is, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face. And we came into the door with a plan, and this pandemic really punched us in the face. And I'm curious to get your feedback in terms of how relevant you feel our economic plan still is. So we set out a goal to create 2,025 jobs, or partner with our businesses to create 2,025 jobs by the year 2025. And doing that through a three-part strategy. We called it getting in our bag together. B being building a city for entrepreneurs. So really a lot of the work with SBDC and the SBA to really create an ecosystem around entrepreneurs to make it easy to start a business in the city of Elyria. Access to capital, access to technical support. So we started to create that ecosystem. The second piece was around trying to attract employers by investing in our workforce. So really investing in our people here and making sure they have the skills that are ready for the economy of the 21st century, and let that be our case that we're making to companies as they're looking at Elyria to say, hey, we have a workforce that's ready. And then the third piece, the G, is around growing the companies that are currently here. So working in partnership with them to really hear their voice in the city, say what can we do to better help you grow. And we had a number of details underneath each one of those, but I'm curious is you had a chance to read it, the plan. What do you think about how relevant it is still, or how much tweaking we need to do?
Yeah, I think you've got a great plan. I really do. I'm not just saying that to you because, I'd be full and frank to try to help you out. And I, of course, like the first part because I'm all about entrepreneurs. But I think you've got that one pretty well nailed. I want to come to the second part because this is where I think Illyria's got, from my memory of our workforce, you got a real asset, but you suffer from this whole trend over the last 20 or 30 years where, America got hollowed out, the Rust Belt, the things that we used to do in our plant, they don't get done in America anymore. The plastic injection molding as much as they used to. You couldn't buy that business and flourish here in the same way. And as a result, I imagine that the folks who, this is 30 years ago, so probably they're not as young as they used to be, but you got a lot of workers who were trained, have enormous skills. We had lathes and all kinds of machine shop stuff. It's always been true in Ohio that we have had a lot of skill, and somehow we're not valuing those skilled workers anymore.
Mm.
They're telling them they got to retrain for tech, or we're telling them they don't matter, and they really just, I say old dog learns new trick when I go on Zoom and I figure out some technology, but it's really hard. And I think an effort to find ways that, the really skilled worker finds their way into a hands-on business. Because at the same time, we say nobody wants to go into manufacturing. All my manufacturing companies in America says I can't find skilled workers. So we've got a mismatch here.
Yep.
I am wondering if we can't do a better job at what you laid out as your second goal, which is to take the assets that we've got and not try to tell somebody they got to be somebody else, but build on what their strengths are.
Wow.
Figure out how that fits
Mhm.
into the economy we want to build.
Oh, that's powerful.
Empower people. Don't tell them you're washed up and you're not useful anymore. When I think the facts are, we need these skills in America. We need to be able to have this production. We need a new kind of outlook onto our manufacturing. We got to do it clean and low cost and really high quality. But I just still believe America can compete.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a couple things. So being such a heavy manufacturing base here in the city, and as you mentioned, this mismatch, for years, many of us told our kids, I'm working this job so you don't have to work it in the future, and now with, the economy the way it is, there's a higher value, I think, on skilled trades and on, the ability to actually do things. And to your point, I think as a society, we have to almost kind of rebrand it. We have to do some rebranding work, and that's something I'm hoping we can do, is start to tell the stories, because I think work is a part of life, and you work for a means. Most folks, they're working to take care of their family. They're working like the big why. Why are you working? Why do you do what you do? And often work is a means. And I think sometimes we've romanticized careers so much that, and especially in the social media era, where there's the temptation to compare your occupation and say, well, my work isn't as meaningful as this person over here, so I don't want to do this work over here. And so we've as a society, I think we've struggled with our identity being so wrapped up in our occupation that now we're kind of trapped in this space where people are like, oh, I don't want to do that menial job. Or Dr. King said the only difference between a menial job and a not menial job is the amount of pay. And if you pay somebody an adequate wage, then that's what matters, how we value it.
Yeah. I also think there's a great joy in making things. I happen to live in Maine. And my husband was the president of a college here, and we moved up here from the big city, and it's been the greatest thing ever. And I tell you, my neighbors out here, and they can make anything.
Yeah.
They are just so skilled at so many things, and there's a great pride about being able to make things. And I don't want to have America lose that. We got a lot of folks who can. So what can we make here in America? And comes to your third point, which is how do you attract the industries that are really going to be successful in the future? And who knows what they are? Whether it's in Maine, we even got medical devices up here, and we got a lot of different things that can get made. And one way to go about this is to look at the assets you've got, the heritage you've got, and say, we're going to be a place where we do really good quality work in this kind of area.
Yeah, we've been looking. Yep.
Advertise, build the community college, build the skilled worker.
I was going next. Yep.
Yeah, there's a little build it and they will come. And then go tell all these other, big plants, you want to put up a shop somewhere? We got industrial buildings ready for you, without zoning issues, where we can give quality workforce, right connected to the community college and the other institutions in the area. And we can be your partner.
Yep.
And, be in a place where this is valued.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, we have one of the best community colleges in the country here with Lorain County Community College. And we've been working on a number of partnerships to kind of guarantee support for students who want to go into, and this is returning students or recent grads who want to go into an in-demand occupation that will guarantee that they can, they'll have tuition covered. So we're working on that now to try to put that piece together. But I think leveraging that asset of the community college is really going to be beneficial for us long term. So we talked a lot about the small business piece. I want to wrap it up with just kind of talking about kind of what you're seeing in terms of where do you see the growth happening as we get through this recovery? I know you talked about with the small businesses, we want to make sure they have access to capital, access to technical support. The kind of local support as well, kind of rallying around. But as you think about some of the more high growth, businesses, any insights that you want to share around some of the high growth industry?
I'm pretty optimistic about America's ability to compete, but I will tell you, I think products and services are going to change over time. So there's going to be, I'm doing a lot of work on artificial intelligence and machine learning. And the big concern is that that's going to run a lot of robots and none of the plants are going to have people. I don't believe that at all. I think they're going to help with a lot of routine tasks where we were pushing paper around. But they're not going to take over completely every job that we've got out there. So one of the questions is, how do you build a workforce that's ready to work with a machine? Right? If you put somebody in a factory floor today, they're going to run a computer. Yep. They're going to run a machine that's got all kinds of numbers and lights and stuff and has to be interacted with.
Yep.
So we need to think about the interface between new technology and the skills that a person needs to have to be in that environment.
Awesome.
And once again, I think every city is going to have a different opportunity. And I believe in industrial clusters and I believe that you look around and you say, what are the assets that we've got? So in Maine, for instance, we have had a big asset in composite technology because we have wood. We have all kinds of composite materials and we make boats here. So we did a whole cluster around boat building in Maine. In Elyria, once again, it's not like you don't have assets. It's not like you don't have a heritage of a certain kind of expertise.
Yeah.
The question is to look forward and say, in those areas, you don't want to be Silicon Valley. You don't want to be Salt Lake City. You want to be, Elyria, part of this great area in Ohio. I've seen Cleveland has really grown. A lot of activity between healthcare, even financial services, and also keeping the industrial base.
Yeah.
So what's the next technology that, Akron did the same thing, moved out of the tires. And what is the next technology for Elyria that builds on its great heritage? And I'm going to come back and be curious to see what, what's still there from the heritage that I remember and you're building.
No doubt. Well, Karen, I appreciate this big time. This is great dialogue and discussion, and definitely I encourage you to follow our journey on social and when we get back to traveling and convening folks, I'd love to host you back here in Elyria and give you a tour of what's happening. And And hopefully by that time, we will have had some progress that we can report out from this conversation.
Well, that's good. Everybody should just stay safe and keep their keep their head on, take a big breath, because we got a bunch of things to get through together, but we will, and then we'll be building more in the future.
Yes, thank you, Karen, big time.
Thank you. Nice to talk to you, Mr. Mayor.